Welcome to part 2 in the series on using Theme 2. In this video we'll be looking at more of the pre-configured components. Specifically, we'll look at the Windows controls and see how we can use those in isolation. We'll look at the content items, and this will include using headers, using a body container to hold our tiles. We'll also look briefly at the tiles, so we'll see how to use the headers and the content and the footer of those. However, we will cover tiles in more detail in a separate video. We'll also look at the tabs, and finally we'll look at adding a map component. So let's get started. We'll begin by creating a dashboard, and I'll set this to open maximised. Now, as always with a dashboard, I need to create a form that will hold my components. Now with my form created, I can start to add components from my palette to my dashboard. So I'll come down to my palette section and expand out Theme 2 App Builder if it isn't done so already. So I'm going to grab my Windows form control and I'm going to drag that onto my dashboard. And it's as easy as that to add the components on. If we want to add additional buttons, those are available in the Theme 2 buttons. I won't do that here, but we will be covering that in more detail in a later video. Next, we then need to add our content, our main content container. And you'll find that again inside this palette. So we're looking for the form content empty. I'm going to use the empty one here because we're going to build this up piece by piece so you can see each of the components inside the palette. Now you won't actually see anything get added, but what we've added to this dashboard here is an area that will sort out the padding and margins for us, and it will make sure the components inside get laid out correctly. Next we'll add a form header. This will be our primary header. Now because we have a container on the dashboard, we're going to need to use the shift key when we drop this so that it drops inside our content container. Okay, now that's dropped inside our content container. If however you do forget to use the shift key, you can locate these items in the repository and pull those and move those around. If you're not sure how to do that, there will be a separate video on navigating in the repository. Go and take a look at that and that'll explain exactly how to move these around. Alright, so the next thing that we need to add will be our body tile container that we've seen previously. And what this will do is it will just ensure that our tiles get laid out on our dashboard as we want them to. They'll get spaced evenly in a row, and it'll ensure that they wrap around, and we'll see how that works and gets laid out in this video. So let's begin by adding in our body tile container. And again, we don't see anything get added here, but if I click on my dashboard, we'll see that we now have the body tile container selected. All right. So that's the body tile container. Now we can start to add to it our tiles. So let's start with a basic tile here. Again, I'm going to hold the shift key. And there we go. The tile's been added, and it looks very similar now to the pre-configured dashboard that we used earlier. So you can see why the pre-configured dashboards are helpful. It takes care of all of this for you. However, if we want to now add to this, we may want to add an additional tile. The way that I like to do this actually is to move my palette next to my repository, and if I go and find my tile body container, we can see here our tile has a tile body container has one tile inside that. If I want to add additional ones, I can again use the shift key and drop it onto the tile body. And we'll see that that gets added next to it. Now the way that the tile body is set up, if we just click on that, it will load up. And if we expand the style settings, we'll see that we have a flex direction set for this. So we're looking here, we have a row. That row is set to wrap, a flex, start and stretch. Now what this means is that all of our tiles will get laid out in a row until there's not enough space, and then it will wrap round to the next row. The justification means we always start on the left hand side of the row, and the stretch just means that the flex box, so this is the tile body, will take the content inside it and it stretches it to ensure it takes up all of the space available. Now let's look at populating one of our tiles. I'm going to add a header, so holding shift I'll drag my header onto the tile. The header is added. Now don't worry that it's in the middle here, that's because of the tile layout. As soon as we add our tile content, and again holding shift, I'm going to drop that onto my tile, this will push the header to the top. Now we may wish to add some action buttons like we have on this particular tile. The way that we'll do that is we'll look in our repository, navigate down to the tile that we're editing. In this case it's the tile 2 top section. I'm going to add into that our buttons CRUD. And that will add some CRUD buttons to the bottom of this tile. Next, we'll explore the options of using the tabs tiles. There are two types of tabs tile. The first one is a tab that has an icon and text, and the second one is an icon only. If you want to see these in action, you can look at the example dashboard inside theme 2. Here we're going to use the tabs tile. To use this, I will select it, holding shift, I will drag it onto our body tile in the repository. This has added it to our dashboard, and we can see that here at the bottom. If you want to edit these by adding a new tab, you can simply drag an icon on from the tabs here onto the tabs, and that will then add an additional tab. Finally, let's look at adding a maps tile. To use this, we'll drag it from our palette into our tile body on the right hand side, hold shift and drop that in. And we can see that our map has been added. Now just a few things to be aware of with the maps. You will need a Google API key in order to integrate with the Google map. Also, the maps will only render when your screen is locked or in application mode. So that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful, and I'll see you in the next one.